Hi, and welcome back. What we're going to do next is we're going to be playing around with some more CSS. What I've done, so you didn't have to sit and watch it again, is I went to Star Trek Epsom and installed a few paragraphs for that. And one of the first things I want to do is I'm going to come over here to my body section, and I'm actually going to do some HTML first, which is I'm going to have the header tag. Now this is new with HTML5. So I've got my header tag, and it's going to end my header. I'm going to hit return a few times. And what I'm going to do is the header tag is typically something you think about for like the title of the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this little line of text right here. I'm going to cut it and I'm going to paste it right in there. And then I have the header section. Now, one of the problems with the header is it gets rid of some of the padding and it's right up against the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and add a header. Now don't confuse this with the head section. That's an easy mistake to make. Header is just like a title section of your website. Well, what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to do a text align center, just like we did before, semicolon, and then I'm going to put some padding, and I'm going to put 10px, semicolon. And this time I'm not going to use an H1 or an H2, so I'm going to make it very big by just definition. So I'm going to call it a font size, and that's going to be 2.2 EM, semicolon. And I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to take a peek and see what it looks like right now. Okay. Now I've committed a mortal sin right here because I still have that very generic title. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the title tag and I'm going to put playing some more with CSS. So it's describing the content of there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to have the body section be 90%. Oops, sorry. It's going to be the width, and it's going to be 90% of the page, semicolon. And then I also am going to do margin auto, semicolon. Now the reason I'm going to do that is it centers it very nicely for me, so I'm going to, haven't saved it yet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click over here, hit reload, and notice how it's brought it in a little bit. You know, centering all the content is not necessarily a bad thing, although I really am not a big fan of centering text other than maybe a title and maybe a footer or something like that. Well, it's got a header tag and then a footer tag. And typically the footer tag, what you do is at the very, very end before you end your body is where you add your footer. And then this is where you typically put contact information. Now, one of the big mistakes that most small business sites do is they have a contact page, but they don't have that contact information on every page. And you should have it typically in the footer section where you can have like a phone number, physical address, email address. And you should have that on every page of a website. And that's why, I'm going to show you later on in the semester how to do a template inside Dreamweaver. Templates are great for that because then automatically, this footer information is always on every page, and if it changes, you can change it in one spot and it changes it for all the pages. Well, for now, I'm just going to put contact info right there and just kind of leave it. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to kind of spruce this up a little bit. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go HTML. It's in the style section. I'm going to do my curly brackets. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, oops, not body. I'm going to have a background dash image. And then I go URL. Now I'm going to do this for Star Trek, so I'm going to come in here to the images directory, and I've got a Star Trek.jpg. Now I don't believe you have to do this, but I've been told to do it this way, so I'm going to put these double quotes in. That was just the way I was taught. Excuse me. And then if I really wanted to, I could move this information here up into here, but I'm not going to bother with that. So let's take a peek at that and hit reload. Well, obviously if we keep it this color, we're going to have a problem because black on black is really cool for being secretive. Also notice that, hey, it repeats itself. If I don't want that, then I'm going to have to tell it not to do that. Well, first of all, one of the things I'm going to do is for the body tag is I'm going to give it a background color. So I'm going to go background dash color, and I am going to do, oops, white. You can have different colors of white. Now this is where you have several options. With the background dash color, I like to use the actual color names because white means something to me. But you can also do the hexadecimal equivalent of that, which is a hashtag and then 6 characters after that which describe the actual color. Now you can be more precise with that hexadecimal color. The reason I don't like using that is because a hexadecimal number doesn't mean much to me. So if I have a pound sign, FF, 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 I don't know what that means. But if you say background dash color white, I usually know what that means. Well, this is where it's really kind of cool when you go to our favorite website, which is the W3 Schools. I've clicked on CSS and then I got background. And then there's the code that I used right here to figure out background dash image. But they also have a link right here to color values. So like I said, you could do that for red, green, blue. I mean, FF0000, that doesn't mean anything to me. One of the things you can do is do RGB. I would say avoid it like the plague, because what's happened with me on occasion is I've had problems with it not being displayed properly. So that's why I don't like it. Unless you're trying to do some form of opacity, I would stay away from that, and I would stay away from HSLC colors. But hexadecimal or color names are the safest way of going about it. And once again, there's a great references here off of the W3 Schools. So there we go. So I'm going to jump back here. Now if I do that background color dash white, I can save that. Now watch what happens. Let's make that a little bit smaller. I'm going to do that instead of 90%. I'm going to do 80%. And then I'm going to do a padding once again, and I'm going to do another 10 px. That way it's not right up against the change of color. And then if I wanted to, I could also add a border. And that could be 2px solid, oops, and red, semicolon. And you notice if it changes colors like that, it is recognizing what it's supposed to be. So I do another Control S, I'm going to save it, come in here, and now I got a nice little red around that. Oops, I just noticed something that I don't like. Oops. I actually want this information above the validation. Even though it's still part of the body, I want that to be separate so that way the contact information's there and you don't this is kind of like a nice tag to have because it's saying that you've done a good job, but it really is not useful information for the user, so that's why it needs to be at the very end, at least in my opinion. There we go, I saved that. Now what I'm going to do next is 80%. See how does that look? Yeah, much better. Well, let's say that I didn't want the Star Trek. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go images. Yeah, there we go. And let's do veggie. Now I'm usually not a big fan of a PNG as a background image because it's way too big. But what I can do with that is I can have, in addition to a background image, I can have a background dash color too. And instead of white, I'm going to go green and see what it looks like. There we go. So the PNG is pretty nice because it melts right in and doesn't negatively interact with the color. Now if I was using a JPEG, you'd see a white square around that, and that just looks ugly as sin unless you have a white background. So now I've got my veggie. Now I always forget how to do this, so I love to come over here to the W3 Schools. Now if I want it to repeat along the X side but not the white side, I can have it do a no repeat. So I'm going to do background repeat, no repeat. Save it and see what it looks like. It's hiding in there somewhere. So that's really not going to work very well. Ooh, I see what happened. I thought it was just hiding below the page, but I forgot my semicolon, so that's why it wasn't working. I thought it might show up a little bit. So now I've got it right here. I could have him down there, but I can't really see him because he's just too small. So if I was to change that again from 80% to maybe 60%. Ooh, not 600. There he is. And then I can have him repeat across this way, or I can have him repeat down here, or no repeat. I can have him be in the center and have it be like a watermark for the page. Just little tricks that you can do. And the nice thing about using percentages is it will resize based on the page. So if I got something small like that, or something really big like that, go. Well, remember that we like to have external style sheets, and I'm going to show you something, and you're going to notice that the background image is no longer going to work when we do this. But I'm just going to call this more.css. I'm going to save it. And I'm going to go File, New, and File, Save As. Once again, coming to the desktop. And I'm going to call it more.css. Now we notice that it's working here all, oops, wrong one. Notice that it's working here. I'm going to cut all of this all the way down to here. Do Control X. Pop up more CSS, paste. Now why it's not going to work is because now I'm sitting in the CSS directory. So I'm going to save it. I know you don't believe me, so we're going to come over here. We're going to hit reload. Oh, don't make me a liar. Oh, I know what I haven't done. I've saved that. I have not saved this. There we go. It's disappeared. Well, what's happened is let's close. Yeah, there we go. My file was sitting originally here because it was part of the CSS. We have now moved the CSS into here, so it's going to be looking for an images directory inside here which doesn't exist. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to tell it in the CSS now for it to work. Jump over here. In order for it to work, I got to tell it to look somewhere else. Well, dot does that. It says jump back a directory and then look for the images directory, and this is nice because it shows it there, shows it there. So we should be in good shape. I save it now and then reload, and my image is back. That's all because we moved the code that was referencing the picture to a different directory. So once in that directory, we had to tell it, oops, we're not looking there for that picture anymore. We now have to jump back a directory. And what does that is this dot says jump back a directory, look for an images folder, look for veggie.png. Oh, there it is, it found it.